Can't get enough of myself.
The first U.S. satellites went into orbit. Newly built suburbs were filling with happy American families. The 50s and 60s could have been seen as a period of time of progression by some. But behind what the TV screen portrayed, in the heart of the uproar regarding racial segregation, African Americans struggled to experience the exercise of their rights. Following the abolishment of slavery with the 13th Amendment, Southern white Americans had trouble accepting African Americans as equal citizens. This bitterness continued for more than 100 years. Meanwhile, in France, their focus was on Vietnam. Their attitude towards African Americans was significantly less aggressive than what was seen in America. France passed a hate speech law posing consequences for talking sugar about other races and cultures. But even before that was introduced, they still seemed to be fairly indifferent regarding racial segregation. Maxine Cable Bryant, my grandmother, was born in Tennessee, but was mainly raised in Alabama, Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland. Because her father was a colonel in the Air Force, she and her family moved quite often. In 8th grade, she moved to Paris as her father was sent to the NATO Defense College there. I asked her what she witnessed there regarding racism and prejudice. She replied with the following.
There were no racial slurs toward Terry during the bus ride. I didn't notice any around the school either. These were all American kids. I really didn't see very many blacks in Paris. The 6 months we were there walking on the streets, we went to the Louvre Museum every weekend on Sundays. It was free, so we could just walk across the bridge and go. I didn't see any black people there, but then again, I was just a kid.
While living in Paris, Maxine mentioned that there were demonstrations occurring.
The things that were fearful for us were demonstrations. There were communist demonstrations on the streets. We were on one of those big rectangular army buses going to school. We go down those little streets, and we did go through a Russian demonstration one time. They were throwing things at the bus. Our bus's name was Max. He liked me best because I was named after him. He was a darling man. He took his job so seriously, very protective of us, and when we had to go through those demonstrations, no windows were down. He made us get down on the floor. So we'd crouch down on the floor, just in case something hit and cracked a window. I didn't see any racial discrimination there at all, but it's common knowledge that Europeans are more tolerant.
Evidently, Paris was more focused on Indochina versus racial integration. After Japan expelled the French colonial government in 1945, France rightfully wanted its independent government to return. Following the restorement of their government, World War II General Jacques Philippe commands 35,000 French troops into South Vietnam to claim French rule and settle the unrest, because war will for sure settle that, right? So by 1950, the Viet Minh forms resistance against French-ruled government in South Vietnam. In other terms, France is struggling with political power among the Vietnamese and is not worried about African American and white American tension. Maxine and Terry became better friends. Her mother wasn't too supportive of their relationship.
It was interesting. It was just a friendship, but he called our apartment one night, and I talked to him for a while. And after I hung up, my mother came in the room and said to me in her southern accent, "That boy will never call here again." I was surprised. I was very surprised. I had never known her to be prejudiced, but it had never come up until that moment.
Though this incident took place in Paris, it reveals the prejudice of the white Southerner because Max's family is from the South. When asked when visiting family if she was able to notice a difference between Paris and America, she said the following.
I think there is. And I've been back there to see aunts and uncles in the north and south, and yeah, it's still there. It's better, slowly changing. I still notice segregation.
For example, her multicultural African American friend dating a white woman received criticism from his friends and family.
And his friends, you said, or like his people, they were angry with him for dating a white girl?
Oh, yes, especially the women, because they say, "Why aren't you dating one of our own?" You know, and I've seen that before. I've seen the black woman get mad when they see a black man and a white woman. So I think prejudice is a two-way street.
Clearly, the tension between these two races is still present today and was boiling during the 40s through 60s. But this problem seems to be particular to the United States, considering what Maxime told us about Paris being much more indifferent regarding this specific social issue. But in the end, it's all America's fault for keeping human slaves in the first place.